Hi, this is Josh Marshall from TPM Media. It's Tuesday, June 26, 2007. Yesterday, Christy Whitman, former EPA administrator, went up to Capitol Hill and gave some very awkward and contradictory testimony about whether the White House censored the EPA in the warnings they were giving about air quality in Lower Manhattan just after 9/11. She also gave an interview to the local NBC affiliate in New York just the day before, and we're going to show you a clip of that interview and a clip of her testimony, and you tell us what she's saying about whether or not the Giuliani administration did everything they could to protect New Yorkers in the days just after 9/11.
One critic, David Newman from the Committee on Occupational Safety and Health, said this, quote, "The city ran a generally slipshod, haphazard, uncoordinated, unfocused response to environmental concerns."
Well, we were certainly frustrated. EPA was very frustrated at not being able to get people to wear respirators because we felt that was so critically important for those workers on the pile.
What did you say to the city? I mean, the city was in charge. You've just said that, and we've known that. Mayor Giuliani's departments were in charge. What did you say to them? How did you try to get that point across? Every
day there would be telephone calls, telephone meetings, and meetings in person. Every day EPA personnel repeated the message, the necessity of wearing respirators, of taking some precautions.
When they didn't wear them, when you saw they weren't wearing them?
I would call my people sometimes at midnight after watching the 11 o'clock news and say, I'm still seeing them without their respirators. We've got to figure out what we can do.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think that the city of New York acted responsibly?
I think the city of New York did absolutely everything in its power to do what was right by the citizens of New York.
Okay, that seems like a bit of a contradiction to us, but it only gets worse in the rest of the testimony. Take a look.
Do you regret your repeated assurances the air was safe to breathe?
I do not regret repeating what the scientists said was appropriate.
Mr. Henshaw.
Do you doubt any of those tests that you found that were within the acceptable limits for exposure for people? I mean, because do
I doubt the quality of the tests?
Yeah.
I have no reason to doubt the quality of the tests.
Well, here's the thing, Governor. We have a lot of people who, in fact, are sick. Many of them are here today. How do you account for what looks to me like a discrepancy?
Oh, Congressman, again, I think we're talking about two different things. On the pile, there were concerns, but in the ambient air quality around Lower Manhattan in general, when we started taking tests and data, we didn't see, the scientists were telling me that they didn't see anything that indicated long-term health problems for the general public.
It is now well established that a large and increasing number of people who were exposed to 9/11 contaminants, primarily rescue and recovery workers, but also area workers and area residents, are suffering serious and persistent adverse health outcomes.
Senator Clinton is proposing spending something in the neighborhood of $55 million for long-term screening and treatment for the residents who live in Lower Manhattan. Do you think that's a necessary idea, to screen residents, to follow them?
I understand why she wants to do it, but I'm not sure. I think we'll see pretty fast, if you're honest about analyzing it, whether it in fact is something that needs to happen.
You don't feel a consuming need for it, as we
I
would
haven't
for the
seen it from scientific evidence that's come forward.
But as yet, I have not seen any final peer-reviewed scientific conclusion from any of those studies, those long-term studies.
By the way, did you read the reports from Mount Sinai about those people who worked?
No, I have not read the reports.
Let me recommend them to you. I say that in all sincerity.
And sometimes it may not seem intuitive to those of us standing around that what they were finding was real, but I will believe the scientists. When they tell me that they examine the data and what is safe for humans to breathe, I will believe them. And in this instance I did, and I think they have been proven to be correct in large measure, to the best of my knowledge.
EPA's and OSHA's public statements mischaracterized the available data. Sampling results obtained by EPA and OSHA after 9/11 indicated the presence of toxic substances at levels of concern at Ground Zero and at other locations in Lower Manhattan, both outdoors and indoors. Asbestos was detected by EPA in 76% of 143 bulk samples collected outside the 16-acre collapse site. 26% of these samples contained 1.1 to 4.49% asbestos. That is, levels 110 to 449% of the level at which legal requirements for asbestos are triggered.
Going forward, I think it is the absolute responsibility of the agency to communicate to the public the information that and the and the conclusions being drawn by the scientists who are looking at the data and making that analysis.
Governor Whitman, were the scientists involved in the issuing of given the information that were used in the press releases that the EPA issued?
Scientists were very much a part of the discussions, yes, sir.
And with the when the press releases were changed, were the folks in the White House, do you know if scientists were involved in that office?
I don't know that, sir.
Well, being that you don't know if there are scientists involved on that end, and there were on your end, and you state, which is accurate and correct, that the scientists are the people who should be making these decisions, why did you never object once with the changing of the press releases to all is safe and clear from a precautionary note?
Congressman, as I indicated earlier, the thing of concern was to ensure that all of the information that the public needed to make intelligent choices was contained in those press releases, and there was. As far as the actual wordsmithing went, I left that to the people who were trying to get consensus from the various agencies, and I have to presume that scientists were involved from the other agencies
You
as
presume,
well.
but you don't know. And
No,
you never...
I don't know. But also remember, Congressman, that press releases were not the only way we were communicating information and data. In fact, I find that they were probably the least effective way, because most of the people that needed the information, particularly those on the pile, didn't have time to sit and read press releases, which is why we communicated it verbally. We have monitored in Brooklyn. We are monitoring within a 10-block area, 10 blocks of this area, and again, the levels are all well below any indication of a health risk. The concentrations are such that they don't pose a health hazard. We're going to make sure everybody's safe.
Do you also agree today, even looking back in hindsight, that the language that you used gave people a false sense of safety?
No, I do not agree that it gave them a false sense of safety. We were talking about air quality, the general ambient air quality in Lower Manhattan, and the impact on long-term health. And I'm sorry if that was not what people now looking back want to see, but that was what the scientists were telling us.
I'm sorry, Governor. This is a quote from the September 18th EPA response. Given the scope of tragedy from last week, I am glad to reassure the people of New York and Washington, D.C. that their air is safe to breathe and the water is safe to drink. Now, that is a fairly sweeping statement about reassurance. Do you now feel that you spoke a little bit too broadly and a little bit too soon about the actual quality of the air and the water?
Every test that we had gotten back, all the data would have indicated, well, Congressman, you know, it's fine to go through the yes and no's, but I think it's important for people to understand that these were not whims. These were not decisions by a politician. Everything I said was based on what I was hearing from professionals. My son was in Building 7 on that day, Congressman.
And Governor,
and I almost lost him.
Governor,
Governor,
excuse me, I'm not going to allow you to turn this into a personal thing. It's personal for the people out here.
It's personal with everybody.
It's personal to the people out here too, Governor.
Yes, I understand that.
Personal to them too. And I'm not going to stand here and allow you to try to obfuscate the questions that I'm asking.
Not obfuscate, Congressman. I'm
by doing what you're doing.
I have been called a liar.
No, I'm not
calling even in this room today.
Governor, I'm not calling you. Governor, I'm not calling you.
With all due respect, you're sitting on a panel with people.
I'm not calling you that.
Time of the gentleman has expired.